Winter 1943. In the ruins of a city once filled with life, snow fell upon the dead. The Volga River, frozen solid, gleamed like glass under a pale sun. Amid the ruins of Stalingrad, tens of thousands of German soldiers huddled in cellars, starving, wounded, and hopeless. For them, the war was over. For Hitler, it was unthinkable. But for history, it was the moment the Third Reich began to die. This is the story of Stalingrad, the battle that doomed Hitler and turned the Eastern Front into his frozen grave. Summer 1942, 1 year earlier, Germany seemed unstoppable. France had fallen. The Balkans were conquered. Even deep inside the Soviet Union, German tanks had reached the gates of Moscow. But Hitler wanted more. He wanted the oil of the Caucasus, the black blood of war, and a victory that would shatter Soviet morale. His eyes turned toward a name that echoed like a challenge: Stalingrad. A city on the Volga River, a major industrial center, and worst of all, it carried the name of his greatest enemy, Joseph Stalin. To destroy Stalingrad would be more than strategy. It would be humiliation. It would be revenge. On June 28, 1942, Operation Blue began. Hundreds of thousands of German soldiers, tanks, artillery, and aircraft surged toward the south. By August, they reached the outskirts of Stalingrad. Hitler promised his generals, "We will take Stalingrad, and the Volga will run red with blood." He had no idea how right he would be. By September, Stalingrad was under siege. The Luftwaffe bombed day and night, a storm of fire and smoke that turned the city into rubble. Factories burned. Hospitals collapsed. Tens of thousands of civilians died in the first days. And yet, the city refused to die. The Soviet command ordered one simple phrase: "Not one step back." The defenders dug in among the ruins. Workers turned factories into fortresses. Snipers hid in shattered buildings. Even children carried ammunition to the front. One Soviet soldier later said, "We fought not for Stalin, not for the party. We fought because the enemy was in our home." By mid-September, German infantry stormed the city. They expected victory in days. Instead, they found a nightmare. Stalingrad was not a battlefield. It was a labyrinth of fire and debris. The Germans called it Rattenkrieg, the War of Rats. Every building became a fortress, every street a killing ground, every stairwell a front line. Machine guns echoed through empty factories. Grenades exploded in corridors. Men fought room by room, floor by floor, sometimes only a few meters apart. One soldier wrote in his diary, "We took a house today but lost half our men. Tomorrow we'll take the same house again." The Soviets fought with a grim ingenuity. When the Germans captured a floor, they'd counterattack from the basement. If the Germans took the basement, the Soviets attacked from the roof. Fighting raged around landmarks like the Red October factory and the grain elevator. Defended by a handful of men for weeks, each side poured in reinforcements until the city devoured them all. And all the while, winter crept closer. November 1942, temperatures dropped below 30 degrees. Snow and smoke covered the city like a shroud. The Germans, exhausted, undersupplied, and stretched thin, had no idea what was coming. On November 19th, the Soviets struck. Operation Uranus, a massive counterattack from the north and south, smashed into the flanks of the German Sixth Army. Those flanks were held not by elite troops, but by Romanian and Italian divisions. Within days, they collapsed. By November 23rd, the trap closed. Nearly 300,000 Axis soldiers were surrounded in Stalingrad. Hitler refused to believe it. He ordered the Sixth Army to hold its ground. The Luftwaffe would resupply them by air, he said. But the airlift failed. The weather was brutal. The Soviet fighters ruled the sky. Of the 700 tons of supplies needed daily, barely 80 arrived. Men froze to death in trenches. Wounded soldiers begged for bullets to end their suffering. The horses were eaten, then the dogs, then the rats. A German officer wrote, "We are the victims of our own pride. The snow is our coffin." Inside the ruins, the Sixth Army began to die. Typhus spread, ammunition ran low. Soldiers fought with knives, shovels, even bare hands. They listened to Soviet loudspeakers blaring across the frozen streets. "Every hour you delay, you die another hour." Hitler sent a message to his trapped commander, General Friedrich Paulus. "You must stand fast. Surrender is forbidden." But what could they stand on? The streets were ash. The tanks were frozen solid. The army was starving. By January 1943, the Soviets closed in from all sides. Thousands surrendered. Thousands more were too weak to lift their rifles. On January 31st, Paulus finally gave the order, "Cease fire." He became the first German field marshal ever to be captured alive, despite Hitler's expectation that he would commit suicide. 2 days later, the last resistance in northern Stalingrad fell. The battle was over. Of the 300,000 men who entered the city, only 91,000 survived to surrender. Fewer than 5,000 would ever return home. When the news reached Berlin, silence fell. Hitler locked himself away for days. Goebbels called it a heroic tragedy. But the truth was plain. Germany had lost an army, and the war would never be the same. Stalingrad was not just a defeat. It was a psychological collapse, the shattering of the myth of Nazi invincibility. For the first time, the world saw that Hitler could bleed. For the first time, his generals began to doubt. In Moscow, Stalin called it the greatest victory in Russian history. In London and Washington, it was hailed as the turning of the tide. The Red Army, once pushed to the brink, now marched west. From Stalingrad onward, the Germans would only retreat. When the smoke cleared, Stalingrad no longer existed as a city. It was a graveyard of bricks and bones. Over 40,000 civilians had died during the siege. Those who survived wandered among ruins, searching for food, for family, for meaning. A Soviet reporter described it simply. "You could walk a mile in Stalingrad and never see a living soul." Yet even here, amid ashes, life returned. Children played among the wrecks. Women cleared rubble to build new homes. And on the banks of the Volga, soldiers planted the red flag. The victory came at a monstrous cost. Over 2 million dead on both sides. But to the Soviet people, Stalingrad became more than a battle. It became a symbol of endurance, of sacrifice, of resurrection. After the war, Stalingrad was rebuilt, brick by brick, street by street. The Mamayev Kurgan Memorial now stands where the fiercest fighting took place, crowned by a colossal statue. The motherland calls. She holds a sword toward the sky, a reminder of the price of freedom and the fury of a people who refused to fall. For Germany, Stalingrad marked the beginning of the end. Hitler's dream of a 1,000-year Reich had frozen to death in the snow. From then on, every German soldier knew the war could no longer be won, only prolonged. For the world, Stalingrad remains a warning, a monument to the madness of pride and the strength of human endurance. Today, the city is called Volgograd, modern, rebuilt, alive, but beneath its streets still lie the bones of the past. Each winter, when snow covers the Volga and the wind howls through the ruins, it whispers the same truth, a truth written in fire, blood, and ice. Here in this frozen hell, an empire met its end.